Next order of business. Next order of business is H.R. 3980, the Small Business Opportunity Act of 2012, introduced by Ms. Herrera-Beutler and Mr. Schrader. I yield to Ms. Herrera-Beutler to speak on 3980.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I'd like to say publicly thank you, Chairman Graves, and to your staff for helping make this important bill, help us bring it before this committee today. I'd also like to thank Ranking Member Velasquez and further my partner in this effort, Mr. Schrader, for joining me in introducing this bipartisan piece of legislation, and all my colleagues who have co-sponsored the bill. You know, I am pleased, Mr. Chairman, to introduce the Small Business Opportunity Act. This bill improves the acquisition planning process and empowers procurement center representatives, PCRs, that's what I'm going to refer to them as, to be better advocates for small businesses. This is going to mean more jobs and more economic opportunities in Southwest Washington, where I represent, and across the country. Procurement center representatives are small business administration employees inside federal agencies. So they're advocates inside these agencies directly responsible for ensuring small businesses get the opportunity to compete for federal contracts. They review federal contracts with the single goal of providing small businesses a level playing field on which to compete. Unfortunately, Mr. Chairman, PCRs are not given the opportunity to perform their jobs to the best of their abilities. Why, you might ask? At times, agencies fail to send those procurement documents for their review. When they do receive those documents, at times the review is the last step in the procurement process, meaning they get it once the package is almost complete. Everything's been all but finalized, but when the PCR actually receives it. So this limits the PCR's ability to meaningfully alter or improve the contracts that will benefit small businesses. So basically, it's keeping them off the table or not at the table. So instead of reviewing contracts, procurement center representatives often spend a great deal of time contracting personnel, training contracting personnel on various small business contracting programs. This task does not appear in their job description. So with only 58 PCRs across the country, Mr. Chairman, they certainly don't need to be spending their time doing other people's jobs. So perhaps the biggest obstacles that small businesses face when they're competing for contracts is the fact that PCRs are directed to specifically not review contracts on commercially available items or services. A commercially available item is anything an everyday person would be able to purchase from a store, anything from a box of pencils to a laundry service. There's absolutely no reason that small businesses should not be given the opportunity to compete for these contracts. Without proper input from the PCRs, many times they're excluded. So how do we fix this? Well, this bill, the Small Business Opportunity Act, changes this playing field. It levels it. The legislation clarifies that PCRs shall have access to all documents in the acquisition planning process. Further, they will now be consulted at the beginning of the planning process rather than at the end when everything's put together, and given an opportunity to weigh in on behalf of small businesses throughout the development of each contract. The Federal Acquisition Institute and the Defense Acquisition University, which are already funded to educate a federal acquisition workforce, will be responsible for all the training, which means we're taking it off the PCR's plate, and it allows them to focus on their main goal, which is advocating for small businesses. Mr. Chairman, small businesses across the country are eager to compete for these contracts, for these federal contracts. There's over 900 of them in Southwest Washington alone, in my district. And when we have double-digit unemployment, and we know that small businesses are where they're the engines of our economy, they should be given the opportunity to compete. Not only will allowing them to better compete benefit the small businesses and the jobs that they're going to create, it's going to increase competition, which is going to bring down bidding prices, and the dollars saved on those lower bids are taxpayer dollars. So it's an efficient, effective use of this system, and the Small Business Opportunity Act reforms it in a very common sense way. So I urge my colleagues to adopt, and again, I thank the ranking member and the chairman and my partner in this effort, Mr. Schrader.